Along with Father Ed, Jesus is a great storyteller, isn't he? And the parable of the Good Samaritan, man, that is a classic story. And it's got drama, it's got unforgettable characters, and it is crafted by a master storyteller. One of the literary features this parable has is the repetition of the phrase that describes the priest and the Levite. Luke says that not only did they not stop to help the man, but they passed by on the opposite side. Both of them do the same thing. They pass by on the opposite side. Now, people who heard this story in the first century, or some people today, by the way, they might make some excuses for those two. The victim was left half dead, we're told. And if they touched the man and he was dead, they would have become ritually unclean and not allowed to officiate or participate in temple worship, which their positions required. Other people defend the two religious men by saying that they were on a notoriously dangerous road. So this could have been a setup, could have been a trap for a solitary traveler. But do you notice that Jesus, he doesn't really pay a whole lot of attention to those two. He doesn't condemn them for passing by or even going on the other side. Instead, he refocuses this and he talks about just the one person, a foreigner, who crossed over to the other side because he had a chance to help the victim. What is it that makes people do such things? Is it only people of extraordinary courage who are willing to risk everything, even their own lives, to help somebody else? A while back, I read a story in Time magazine that was entitled "A Conspiracy of Goodness." Jotje and Art Vos were a Dutch couple who risked their lives during the Holocaust to hide Jews from Nazis. They were part of a group known as the Rescuers, and that group saved nearly 500,000 lives during that time period. And when Jotje and Art were asked what made them take such risks, they and the others responded in a similar way, a way that sounded very ordinary to me. We didn't think about it, they said. One of the rescuers put it this way: you kind of started off storing a suitcase for a friend, and before you knew it, you just wound up doing what any human being would do. And you know, a study was done of these rescuers, and it was found that they came from all classes of people, educated and uneducated, rich and poor, believers and atheists. They were all individualists. While sometimes people follow the demands of society and the pressure of their peers, these people were not constrained by what others expected them to do. Family, friends, and society can often exert pressures that restrain good deeds. That Samaritan did not say to himself, well, that man's a Jew. My people don't help Jews. No. The Samaritan did not see a Jew by the side of the road. He saw an injured person. You can draw your own parallel these days. That article was entitled "Conspiracy of Goodness." Do you know the word conspiracy? It's not always a threatening word. It really means to breathe with. That's who we're supposed to be as Christians. That's who we're supposed to be as a church. We are supposed to be a conspiracy of goodness. We breathe together the same breath of God's Spirit to do good regardless of people's origins or marital statuses or races, sexual orientation, or whatever their religion is. The Spirit breathes in us to make the instinct to help others a natural response. That instinct is as natural as breathing in and breathing out. And Jesus' question at the end of this passage, which of these three, in your opinion, was neighbor to the robber's victim? That question's outside of the parable. We are people from another kingdom. We are supposed to live by another standard. We're supposed to be people who act in love, a love that does not draw borders which include some and exclude others, a love that expects no return on the dollar. The law of God referenced in that first reading, that is just a mere code. It suggests that God's law really requires humanity, not merely a strict conformity to the laws. Something in the Samaritan moved him, just like those rescuers that I read in Time magazine. That Samaritan didn't go through a long debate about the merits of this wounded person. Unlike the Samaritan, these days, even some Christians have turned their backs upon the wounded and the abandoned and the distressed. Do we pass hard judgment? Or are we like the Samaritan? Do we have compassion and respond to the wounded who are by the side of the road?